Ashley with Amare. So today I'm going to do a video on fibrosis. Now I realize in every single video that I have on here I talk about fibrosis, but I was looking for actually a reference to send to a client and I realized I didn't have a video just on fibrosis. So we're going to talk about it today. All right, so again, let me preface this talk as well as all of my other talks. I'm not a surgeon, not a doctor, but I am a post-op specialist and I do specialize in treating fibrosis. Now, in order to do that, we need to understand what is fibrosis and where does it come from. So if you Google what fibrosis is a thick buildup of tissue or scar tissue, right? So, okay. Now we know that. Okay, why does it happen? Why is it dangerous? Where does it come from? Blah, 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 blah. Well, let's back it up. So you get plastic surgery, lipo, tummy tuck, BBL, whatever. You get plastic surgery and you wind up with the lumps, the bumps, the hardness. So the smallest case of fibrosis that I've seen is it's like a little knot. It feels like a knot and it's just beneath the surface of your skin. So if you just like feel, if you like move your skin, you can feel like a little lumpy thing in there. So it's sometimes the size of a pea. Other times it's big patches of fibrosis, or it's one really big hard patch at your lower abdomen. That's super, super common because you guys are using boards and you're using binders and you're having really bad fitting garments and all this stuff. Or like the fupa area gets really hard, the pelvic region. I don't know why they call it a fupa. That's kind of silly, but the lower pelvic region gets really hard. Any area that is either just beneath the skin or you can sometimes see it. Like if you're seeing your pores, those like little holes on your skin and it's like hard and thick. Guys, we have so many pictures of fibrosis before and after with the fibrosis on our feed. Now you guys are gonna know what to look for. But those little like hard areas, lumpy areas, areas that like you can physically feel there's something in there and it's not totally smooth, yeah, that's some fibrosis in there. So let's now talk about what causes fibrosis now that you know what it is. It's like that lumpiness, that unevenness, that really hardness, that thickness. If when you go to move, you feel a pull, not an internal muscle pull, but like your skin is tight, that's also fibrosis. Fibrosis doesn't just have to be in a clump or a lump. Fibrosis can be spread all the way around your body, every single place you got surgery, lipo or tummy tuck. So that being said, worst case I've seen is literally a plate of fibrosis all the way around where it's like your skin doesn't even move, it's completely adhered or stuck. That's fibrosis. Now that we know what it is, why, how, where'd it come from? So your body naturally makes scar tissue, right? Your body naturally fills up the holes. So we got lipo, we got stuff sucked out. We got tummy tuck, we got stuff sucked out. We got things moved, tissue, skin that's pulled and cut and moved, right? So when your body gets cut, right? Let's think about it this way. You have a pimple, which I don't, but you have a pimple, and you pop the pimple. And out comes the pus, and then there's that white clear fluid. That's lymph fluid. When that dries, it leaves like a crusty film kind of, and that's meant to close up the hole. So when you get lipo, your body swells, and that swelling is similar to that clear fluid that you get from the pimple. It's lymph fluid. It's meant to go in there and fill up the area that you had all the fat taken out of. So that swelling fills up that area, right? And just as it gets hard and crusty on the outside, it's gonna help repair all that stuff. Now, when you stub your toe, your body naturally sucks that fluid back after it's in there swollen and takes all the broken tissue and heals everything. The swelling starts to come down as you heal. That swelling coming down is your body reabsorbing that swelling for you to pee it out. Now with something like a stub toe, you may not notice it. Something like post-surgery, yeah, you're gonna notice it because you're super worried about the way you look. You're super worried about your results. You wanna heal smooth. So, is fibrosis a natural part of healing in the body? Fibrosis is meant to make holes filled up and stronger so they don't break again. That's what scar tissue is, right? Or fibrous tissue, fibrosis. So yes and no. It's not meant to be there like that post-surgery. That means it's getting trapped. Are you meant to swell? Yes. But are you meant to have fibrosis? No, that is the simple answer. No, it does not need to be there. When you start treatment with us at Amare, when we get you in a proper Amare garment with Lipo Foams to make sure your fluid is staying soft and not getting trapped, compressed, or causing that buildup of fluid that becomes stagnant and squished that causes fibrosis, when we make sure that doesn't happen, you don't see any fibrosis. It never happens because your fluid never gets to that hard state, because your body is not thinking it needs to protect anything, because you're protected by the foams and the garment. So fibrosis and scar tissue, right? You get a really deep cut on your hand, and if you don't get stitches, you have a really thick, ugly scar, right? But if you pull that together with stitches, it heals in a really thin scar. Why? Because your body doesn't have to fill that with fluid and create all this extra fibrous tissue to fill up the hole and repatch your skin. Well, let's take that inside the body, talking about lipo and stuff, right? Lipo and all these procedures. If we cut that and we have a hole, if we are holding you with a compression garment with proper lipo foams that are cushioning you, so nothing hard is touching or hurting your body, aka a board, no boards, no binders, so nothing hard is touching your body, triggering it to think, oh, we need to defend ourselves, we're going to make this hard and thick because we have nothing to defend us. That's when fibrosis comes into play. So when you have a garment that's too tight, it's trapping that fluid movement, and that fluid is going to become thick and stagnant tissue. When you don't have a garment, you develop lots of fibrosis because nothing's holding your body to tell it that, hey, this fluid doesn't need to stay here and become thick and fibrous because we're healing properly. We're held together. We don't need to bridge that gap because that gap is being held with a garment and with foams. I really hope this is making sense, guys. I know it's super technical. But basically, fibrosis can happen from a garment that's too loose, or not having a garment. So that's side one of it. Side two of it is having something that's trapping the fluid and it's not moving. So right, when you have that stub toe, that swelling that's in there, it drains out naturally on its own, and the swelling comes down, it goes back into your body and you pee it out. But if you have, let's say, like a binder or a board or a garment that's too tight, those lymph vessels, as I say in all my videos, those lymph vessels are only a hair thick. If you compress that too hard, nothing's going to flow through those vessels. It's not going to have a way to move. So when you're wearing a binder that's cutting into you or pressing into your body, when you're wearing a garment and getting snatched, which is sizes too tight because tighter is better. That is not true. Tighter is not better, and you don't get snatched from squeezing the crap out of yourself, guys. Please stop. But when you have something that's too tight, or a board, or a wrap, or a waist trainer, or a binder, which again, I have a whole thing on binders. Sometimes they are necessary. Sometimes we can work around them. It really depends. So take that with a grain of salt and go watch my other videos. But when you have something that's too tight, trapping that fluid in there, it's not going to get to move. So basically, this lymph fluid contains white blood cells, water, fats, proteins, right? So this lymph fluid, aka swelling, goes into that area that's now a hole because the lipo sucked all the fat out, and it says, okay, we need all these materials to rebuild the tissue. Go. Send swelling to the area. And then the second job of it is when the swelling comes down, it takes away the broken tissue, the bruising that you see, the broken tissue inside, any of the debris that's left, it cleans it up out of your tissue, you absorb it back into your body, and you pee it out. So there's two sides to it, right? Well, if you're wearing a binder or a garment that's 10 sizes too tight, or a board that's trapping any kind of movement in there because it's hard against your skin, that fluid's not going to move, which means all those building blocks and those dead cells and all that broken tissue is not moving. It is not going anywhere because it's a hair thick and you're crushing it. So it's not moving, and all of it's sitting in there. And the analogy that I like to use is a body of running water. So let's say a stream, right? If you build a dam in a stream, there's no movement, nothing's going anywhere. And then that stream with that dam in it, that water becomes really murky. Then from it becoming murky, it starts to dehydrate, right? Because some of the water is, evaporating, becoming stagnant and all that. So then it becomes a swamp. And then after a swamp, from sitting there for so long with no movement, it becomes marshland, which is more solid. After becoming marshland, it becomes regular land because all of that is in there. Now, when you are drinking too much caffeine, when you are not having enough water, you are dehydrating your swelling, you are dehydrating your tissue after surgery, and you have a lot of swelling in there to dehydrate. So that causes hardening, which is fibrosis. So when you're trapping fluid, it starts to become compacted and thick, and that becomes fibrosis. When you're dehydrating it, it helps it become compacted and thick, and that becomes fibrosis. When you're using binders, boards, garments that are too tight, it's going to trap that and compress it and cause fibrosis. If you guys have fibrosis, I challenge you, take a look at the items you've been using, either your garment or the board or the binder. See if when and where you put that thing on, you have patterns of fibrosis, because those things are trapping it and causing it, which then means you need to set up a virtual with me and let's get you into some proper supplies so you stop crushing your body and you can start to heal. So there's that. The other reason for fibrosis is, like I said, the dehydrating and the caffeine. Stimulants, caffeine, and not having enough water, because again, that fibrosis was originally swelling and lymph fluid that was meant to move and heal everything and clean out of your body, which didn't happen because we were smushing it. Or you are super dehydrated. If it has no water, it can't move. Again, the analogy of the running stream. So we want to make sure that we're drinking tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of water. Now you can do that till the cows come home and drink tons of water. But if you're in a garment or a binder or with not foams, boards, or even if you're using the memory foam, where it's like, if you can pinch your foam, and next week's video is on foam. If you can pinch your foam and feel your fingers in between, it's crushing into your body. Again, we don't want anything blocking the flow. So any supplies that you guys are using that's pushing into your body, not just pushing, like not just touching your skin, but pushing into your body itself, is going to cause fibrosis. We want no pushing into the body at all. We want to be very, very gentle and soft. We want to keep everything soft. So fibrosis does happen. Is it reversible? Yes, up to a certain point. Usually it's about the 6-month mark. I have, specifically myself, worked on fibrosis that is 2 years old and gotten it to shrink and gotten it to dissolve to a certain point. So it's very different for everybody. But if you are 3 months post-op, we can still deal with fibrosis. If you're 6 months post-op, we can still deal with fibrosis. There is always some way to help. There is always an option. You are not stuck with it permanently, unless you are, which we will talk about in a separate virtual. But that's a very rare case. You can always help reverse it or diminish it somehow. So there's that. But if you have those lines, if you're not using proper garments, if you're using that sponge, that foam, whatever it is, if it's not the Amare recommended lipo foam where it's pushing into your body versus soft compression, proper compression that feels comfortable. If you can't bend down and touch your toes in your compression garment with your foams in, there's a problem. If you can't take a deep breath, there's a problem. If that board is cutting into you, if you feel anything crushing into you or pushing into you that is a board or a sponge or something like that, might want to look into that. That may be a problem. If you're feeling the pressure over your incisions to the point where you feel like it's pushing into your body, you might want to check on that. Might be a problem. But again, fibrosis is something that can be avoided, something that is absolutely reversible if we're treating it properly. Combating fibrosis, proper supplies first and foremost. You guys can be getting your massages, you could be drinking your water, you could be not having caffeine, you could be eating regularly good whole foods and still wind up with fibrosis because your garment and your boards and all the other supply craziness stuff that you're using is trapping fluid under your skin, in your tissue, on your body, triggering your body to think, oh, okay, well, this is stuck here. We're just going to leave all these building blocks and all of this debris here because there's nowhere to flow. So there's that. Why do heat therapy and laser light therapy and infrared therapy and all of these things not work on fibrosis? Because again, they're not going to turn it back into fluid. The only thing that turns fibrosis back into fluid is the polyurethane Amare Lipo Foams. Why? Because it is gently like kind of moving against your skin. So our foams don't press into your skin. A little bit about our foams. Our foams don't press into your skin like memory foam does. The lines that you see from foam on your skin is different depending on the lines that you see from a board and things like that. That we'll get to in our video on foams next week. But the foams are going to sit against your skin, and every time you move, it's going to gently move your skin. So what that's going to do, along with the water and cutting the caffeine and watching the diet and stuff like that, which we'll talk about in another video, that's going to help turn the fibrosis back into water. It's not about dissolving the fibrosis. Vibration machines will not break up your fibrosis. Pounding away at scar tissue, which is fibrosis, that's full of fluid, that's in tissue that's trying to heal, is not going to heal fibrosis. Rubbing vigorously over fibrosis is not going to break up fibrosis, especially if you're still swollen, especially if you are still 6 months or under post-op. Because again, that tissue is very fragile. Fibrosis, think about it again, is like a scab or like scar tissue starting to develop. If you have a cut on your hand and you take the stitches out and it's healed, but there's still swelling under there, raking through that bad boy is not going to be very comfortable. And on top of that, it's going to break more tissue and irritate it even more. So I see a lot of people that come to me after getting those hard, aggressive, what they claim to be lymphatic massages, that have more swelling around their fibrosis than they did before, because you're abusing tissue that's already abused, that's trying to heal, that's struggling. So again, those lipofoams don't push into the body, they sit against it and gently move your skin so that it can start getting some lymphatic flow, so that the water can start help dissolving the fibrosis and turn it back to water. So last point, relapsing fibrosis. This is a thing. So you'll think you'll get rid of your fibrosis, or it starts getting better and then it gets worse. One, messing with your garment, changing your garment, things like that, where it's not a good garment, but you're flip-flopping between garments, is going to cause hell with your fibrosis. Because you're squeezing and then you're giving no compression. And then you're squeezing and giving no compression. So it tosses it back and forth. When you use your lipofoams and you're in your garment, but you don't get your lymphatic massages, the actual Vater style, hands-on, gentle, manual lymphatic drainage that doesn't hurt, the ones that we do, when you're just using your supplies and not actually getting yourself drained, the minute that you get out of a garment, the minute that you get into a garment that's too small or eat something you weren't supposed to that triggers your fibrosis, it's going to come right back. Your skin is going to get thick, you're going to feel yourself swell, your skin is going to get hard, it's going to get tough. Relapsing fibrosis. Why does this happen? Because taking care of fibrosis is a two-step process. One, you have to stop doing the things that are causing the fibrosis. Two, you need to get that fluid out of there. Again, guys, remember, fibrosis is just fluid that got trapped and stuck in that area between the skin and the tissue, sometimes like in the tissue, between the skin and the tissue, in that interstitial space, that fluid got stuck and compacted, and now it's starting to get hard. It's still fluid at that early stage, and then it becomes a gel, and then it becomes a little bit harder, and then it becomes like a knot. So we want to turn that back to its original swelling water state. When we turn that back to its original swelling water state, we still have that swelling and water in there. We need to get it out. How do we do that? By getting your body to reabsorb it. How do we do that? True manual lymphatic drainage that dilates your lymph vessels to get your body to trigger to suck that fluid back and pee it out. You cannot, and no doctor will ever cut your stubbed toe open to get swelling out. That is not how that works. Same thing post-surgery. If people are reopening your incisions and trying to squeeze fluid out of you, guess what? You're still going to wind up with fibrosis. That is still a thing. Just because you are smaller, just because your body looks smaller, does not mean that you will never wind up with fibrosis. You still can and probably will, because now you're dehydrating that tissue of all those vital essential fluids that your body needs to heal. Literally squishing them out of your body. So, just because you're getting the squeeze massage does not mean that you won't have fibrosis. You have to actually be taking care of your swelling. You have to actually be taking care of turning that hard gel-like fluid that was supposed to be fluid back to fluid so that we can get it out the way it was meant to get out of the body naturally. That is how you take care of fibrosis. So, to wrap it up, major points. Fibrosis, yes, it happens. Is it reversible? Yes. Can we help it? Yes. How do we help it? Lots of water, limit the caffeine, get proper garments and foams. If you don't know what that is for your specific surgery, call me and set up a virtual 732-841-0142. Call the office. Alex can help you with that. But if you don't know what that is, proper supplies for your surgery, set up a virtual. I'll tell you what you need to get and set up a protocol for you. And if you have fibrosis, assess that as well. And if you need help finding a lymphatic therapist that is true for hands-on Vater style manual lymphatic drainage like I'm talking about to help with your fibrosis, I can help you find one. So set up the virtual. But yes, getting it out is a two-step project. So one, stop doing the things that you were doing that's bad, causing the fibrosis. Again, water, caffeine, bad garments, all those things. flip it and reverse it, start doing the water, get proper supplies, take care of it, and then make sure you're getting your true hands-on manual lymphatic drainage massages to get that fluid out so that you stop having that fibrosis in there. Because guys, the more fluid you have in you, the more chance that that's going to become fibrosis. As we take that fluid down, the less chance that any of that's going to become fibrosis. So if you don't have fibrosis yet, but you have a lot of swelling and you're not getting your sessions done and you're just wearing your garment, and you're like, yeah, it's all right, whatever, and then you come to me 3 months later, yeah, I'm still swollen, I still have hard patches. Well, duh, you didn't do any aftercare, dude. Hello? So even 3 months out, even 6 months out, if you guys slacked on your aftercare, you can still flip it around and set the train right on the right track. So set up a virtual. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys kind of understood it. I tried to go as in depth as possible without getting lost in the science sauce. So I will see you guys soon. Call the office if you want to set up a virtual. Our Lipo Foams are on the post-op shop. I will put the link in this video. This video will go live on Friday. And I will see you guys next week. Have a good rest of your day, guys. Bye.